I love Age of Empires 2, and I've committed quite a chunk of my streaming career on that game. What started as a side project turned into me streaming the game this year for 6 months straight without basically any other game interrupting that. I made videos praising the game, I have my own mods in the game, and now I'm quitting it. Like, I could say that I'm a veteran in the gaming industry at this point. I ran an esport tournament association for years before I started streaming actively on my own channel, and now over 6 years of full-time streaming and content creation. I like to share some of my observations on the current state of Age of Empires 2 as a whole, share predictions, maybe some concerns. Basically, what ultimately led me to believe that it's not worth investing more time into Age of Empires 2. Obviously, this is highly subjective, so it may not apply to everyone, but as a content creator, I need to have fun in the game, but it also has to be lucrative. I have to live off of making content from the game, and in Age of Empires, it seems like it's just not going to happen for me. I'm just going to present you a critical look at everything that is going on around the game, take a look at some other streamers and content creators that are, let's say, similar profile to mine, and see how they're doing. So let's jump right in. It's been a few months since I've quit Age of Empires now. I've actually quit it 3 times by now. 2 times because of crashes that ultimately didn't allow me to play at all, so I was forced to. But this last one, I think I'm quitting for good, unless something amazing, miraculous happens that brings me back. I've heard from a lot of people that I made a mistake by quitting, and that I was progressing really well since I got to 1950 solo rating in about 6 months of pure gameplay. And it was nice to have a new face in the community, people were saying. But it's also concerning that they didn't really understand why I quit and what goes into a decision like that. But let's first talk about some other veteran players quitting Age of Empires, or at least quitting full time and like big commitment to the game. I guess the first one would be Jordan. He was a member of the biggest esport team in Age of Empires, GL, and he quit because he couldn't make a decent living from being a pro and a streamer, even though he had some pretty decent numbers on Twitch, and he was getting some winnings from tournaments as well. But it was inconsistent, and it just wasn't enough. And he has a family to feed. Nilly from the same team was maybe a little bit less pro, maybe a little bit more caster. He had his own reasons as well, but after this tournament that he's doing right now, he won't be committing as much time as he was previously. So I did a short analysis on the biggest streamers of Age of Empires on Twitch, and here's a very interesting finding. Almost all the top streamers belong in at least one of the 2 categories, which are pro player playing for prize money in tournaments, or a commentator. There is no third category. There are really no solo/team players that don't compete and don't cast tournaments and have a successful Twitch stream. So let's take a look at the list. Memb caster, Hera pro player / caster, Dave caster, T90 caster, Viper pro player, MBL pro player, Nilly both, Tato pro player. Survivalist is the only one that I wouldn't call a pro, even though he does play tournaments. And he's also not necessarily a caster, even though he does cast. So he's like the only one that I would say so far that would be my profile of a streamer. Doubt Pro, Hard Pro, Jordan Pro, or Nulu caster. We don't have to go forward. Like, we're gonna see some more casual streamers now, but these are the most watched streamers, casters and pros. But what's interesting is that the highest non-pro, non-caster only has 200 concurrent viewers on average. 200 viewers is probably not enough to make a full-time living from Twitch. Especially in Age of Empires, I would say you need at least 500. If you've ever tuned into Mem TV streams, when he's not doing tournaments, when he's doing either 1v1 or Black Forest games, which are team games, you'll notice that he has between 3 and 10 times less viewers than when he does tournaments. And that also makes sense, right? Membe's not a professional player, like he plays it casually, above average skill level, obviously, but it's not the top level. But it also is a bit concerning that he can't get even close to his usual viewership, which is when he's casting. I think this is because of the maturity of this game, or, well, bluntly said, how old it is, that casual streaming is just not interesting 25 years down the line. And due to all this, I just don't think that there's a market for someone like me. If we look at Mihai, who's an up-and-coming player, he wants to be a pro, he's trying really hard, he's practicing, he's also streaming that. He made a video where he said that he makes like at most $400 per month, and that's like a gross value as well. And the worst part is, if you look at his stats, his stream isn't even growing. Obviously, a stream will not just grow all of a sudden. You have to be a good streamer. But he's one of the few people that were interesting to watch because they were just breaking out of the pleb world and into the pro world. He's just not doing well enough, I guess. Another streamer is Andre, who streams his mornings in the downtime of Twitch, let's say. But there's still a lot of viewers that want to watch. He's been hovering around like 100 to 200 viewers for the last almost 2 years now, right? Even though he's been pretty consistent with his streams, and he's also improved a lot, but he's not really growing. He's actually going down if you look at the last 1 year. So TheViper mentioned in a recent podcast that he likes to host people that are smaller, that are up and coming, and I think that's great. I mean, Viper is a very genuine guy, and he likes to help out. He's a really nice guy. But if you have to rely on TheViper hosting you to be able to grow your stream, well, you're doing something wrong. And a topic a lot of streamers don't really like to talk about, and some did, like Jordan, like Mihai, that's stream revenue. And I have to say, other than a few people supporting me, new viewers, some old viewers, I wasn't making any money from streaming Age of Empires. Sure, I could have pushed more on YouTube, even though I created a separate channel where I posted 1 video per day. I could have done this or that, but at the same time, maybe I would quit the game anyway. Also, another thing that hits you really hard when you're just streaming your ladder games is if there's a tournament happening at the same time. You're looking at basically between 30 and 70% reduction in your viewership because of the tournament, which ties pretty well into the caster pro player narrative from earlier. Okay, so this was like a meta business analysis, but what's wrong with the game itself? Well, first of all, and this hit me as well as a new player, is that the new player experience is pretty bad in this game. There aren't that many new players. You start at 1000 elo, which is incredibly high for someone that just started playing. You're going to lose your first 10 to 20 games. It's guaranteed. And from what I've read, from what I've heard, a lot of people just quit because they can't handle losing nonstop. They have to go all the way down to like 500 elo to be able to beat someone. And maybe you didn't know, but most players that play this game actually play single player only. But there's an illusion that there's like tens of thousands of people playing Age of Empires multiplayer, but really they're not. Here's another fact that is pretty concerning, and I've heard Hera talk about this a lot. Since Definitive Edition came out, and when people started playing, 0% of those new players have become pro players, or at least they haven't broken into even top 16. Closest were Margugu and Mihai, guys like that. But really, the top 16 has been the same since the old version of the game. But what is the incentive for someone to try to break into the top 16? When even the pros in the top 16 cannot live off of their earnings. Only a few players can, like only the top players that win tournaments or get very close to winning and are on a team that pays them enough monthly, which is like 1 team. Can you even imagine how long it would take a talented gamer to try to get into the top 16 if he started playing today? I would say at least 2 years of full-time playing. You have almost 50 civilizations in this game. You have 1,000, literally 1,000 combinations of civilization versus civilization matchup. They need to know up front how it's going to play out, because this game is just played on experience. Of course, it's a super hard game, but without experience, you're nothing in this game. The professional community is also being funded by Microsoft, big donors from the community, and play cricket sounds. In my opinion, that's not esports. There needs to be an ecosystem that funds the pro scene, not Microsoft giving money to tournament organizers and then some people giving like 5 or 10K to see a tournament happen with no return. It's just barely staying alive right now. Also, remember when I said that there's tournaments happening while you're streaming? Well, that's almost every day, unfortunately. And that is because tournaments are spread out as much as possible. Every game is streamed. You have like 100 players and then almost every game is streamed. Tournaments last for over a month sometimes. That is because the funding is limited. People want to make the most out of the money that is given to them. I mean, you can understand it, but it's not great. At this point, sponsors are just not interested in Age of Empires 2. Just look at Hera and his team Aftermath. Hera is the best player right now. He's won almost everything in the last year, and his team is made of top players. But they don't have a sponsor. They don't have a pro team to represent. Apparently, it's hard to market to players playing this game. I mean, some of the players also to blame. They never did any YouTube content. They never stream. It's kind of required today to be a content creator on top of being a good player in a game. So that's why TheViper and Hera are the top 2 players, and also like top two content creators of their type. The only big organization in this game is Gamer Legion, and I guess the main reason why they're still here is because of TheViper and his social influence, because nobody should underestimate how big TheViper is in the Age of Empires community. Let's talk about the devs a little bit, which is one of the main reasons why I quit. So Microsoft's main focus in the last few years was Age of Empires 4, not 2. And that game failed pretty hard as well. Age of Empires 2 suffered because of this, and it's still suffering. So the AoE2 devs do seem willing to change the game to a degree and do understand some of the problems that are happening. They also have open channels to the community and like especially to the pros and the content creators, which is obviously a good thing. That's what they're supposed to do. But there are 2 main problems. The first one is the ancient spaghetti code, like almost 30 years old, that they cannot really deal with. Thing that they want to do, it takes them forever to do. They also break the game in 5 different ways whenever they try to change something. And the second problem ties into it. It just takes way too long to do anything, to react to bugs, to react to broken things of any kind. It's just very frustrating as a player to play a game that stays broken for a long, long time. Just look at the unit pathfinding since the start of this year. It's been dreadful. It's worse than it was when Definitive Edition got released. How's that possible? Well, they broke something and now they're trying to fix it. Every few months they release something that kind of fixes stuff, but then they also broke something again. It's just never ending. And this game is also supposed to be an esport, and then you have 3 villagers just standing still in the woods or on the mining camp and just doing nothing, and then you lose because you didn't have enough resources. Or your knights go left instead of right. This is the main reason why I started getting bitter and mad during my streams and my games. And that's a feeling that I just don't want to have while I'm playing. If a game does that to me, I'm just done with it. All of this means that I cannot really trust Microsoft and their studios to deliver on this game long term, and that it's safe for me as a content creator to stick with it. I want to briefly touch on DLCs. So you have to pay $5 to $10 to play the new civilizations and new campaigns, which I guess would be fine. Like, nobody's complaining about the price of the DLCs, at least from what I've seen. But here's the problem. This approach of adding 1 or 2 civilizations in each DLC is so incredibly lazy. You add so much meta complexity for little to no gain, especially if the civilization becomes underpowered really fast and nobody plays it. You add like hundreds of combinations of matchups by just adding these civs in. The civs are so similar, what's the point? StarCraft has 3 civs. Warcraft 3 has 4 civs, and these games are insanely hard to balance. And now you have almost 50 in Age of Empires. How to balance that? How to play that? Also, kind of forced to play random once you get better at the game, to keep the game fresh, to not have your opponents yell at you because you're playing Mongols every game. But then at the same time, if you don't play a lot, if you play random, you get a civilization that you never played, or you play so rarely because, I mean, there's so many civs, you can only play so many games per month. Sometimes you don't see the same civ more than once per month. You forget what the civ does. Also, the balance patches, they change what the civilizations do all the time. It's just incredibly hard for new players. Incredibly hard. This is the hardest game that I've ever played. I'd like to wrap it up with one more thing that affected this decision quite a bit, and that is the physical and mental stress of playing Age of Empires. Obviously, this is very individual, but after I'm done streaming Age of Empires, I need to go and relax for a full hour before I can do anything else that requires any mental power. I feel so drained that I can barely have a normal conversation IRL with any focus. The only other game that ever did this to me was StarCraft, and I've quit that one too because of that. So what am I doing now? Well, I'm playing another strategy game for fun. It's called Beyond All Reason. If you follow Winter StarCraft or Drongo, those guys have played it as well. It's a super fun game, but what's special about it is that it's open source. It's basically total annihilation. You might know that if you played Age of Empires when it came out. I think there's a lot of potential in this game. This game might define the RTS genre in the coming years. It has an amazing community, has great developers. I've submitted like 30 different bugs and suggestions, and they've fixed most of that stuff, and I started playing this game a few weeks back. It's incredible how fast they can change things, improve the game, and how willing they are to improve the game. This is something that a game like Age of Empires 2 will never have, guys. So if you want to check out Beyond Our Reason, you should stop by the stream. I'm streaming it basically every day now. Anyways, I'm always looking out for new titles to play. It doesn't have to be a strategy game. It doesn't have to be an FPS game. I got bored of PUBG. That's why I'm not playing it anymore. The skill cap in that game is extremely low, and it just wasn't challenging anymore after a few years. So I'm always looking for a new challenge, and Beyond Our Reason is currently that. I want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on everything that I said so far, on my reasoning, on what's happening in Age of Empires? What can Age of Empires do to pull someone like me back into it? That'll be it, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one, and see you in the next one.